Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everyone to the December 11th business meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees. Let's see, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:32, and let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, once again, welcome. We have a quorum tonight. Mrs. O'Connor is excused. We'll move right into tonight's agenda with a request for any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda.
Supervisor, I'd move to have 3 additions added as discussion items. One would be the use of a financial planner going forward to help us move to better financial stability. The second would be a formation of a committee for informational purposes on the bridges that we have, both the county bridge as well as the bridges for the infrastructures connecting the main island to the various outlying islands, as well as a discussion regarding the cable microphones and the continuing problems we're having with cabling of these meetings. Those are the 3 things that I would like to add as discussion items.
You're covering a lot of territory. None of us have any background, other than what we've picked up anecdotally. When we are going to have a study session in the second January meeting. Do you want to just open up these topics briefly tonight?
Very briefly.
Okay.
Very briefly.
Very briefly, I think would be acceptable. Get an idea where we stand. Waiting for a second.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Trustee Bletcher, seconded by Trustee Budney, adding a 3-part discussion item as briefed. Discussion among the board? Okay, with none offered, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered? A nay from Mr. Malvesto. Any other additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The agenda then stands amended. With that, I'll offer the microphone for brief public comment on tonight's agenda items. All right, with none offered, let's move into tonight's consent agenda. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Look for a motion to approve consent agenda 17-066. It includes the minutes of the regular meeting November 27th, 2017, the minutes of the closed session meeting number 1, November 27th, 2017, the minutes of the closed session meeting number 2, November 27th, 2017, check register dated through December 8th, 2017, and authorized to process and distribute payments through December 31st, 2017.
Okay, moved by the Treasurer, seconded by Trustee Budney. Any discussion among the board on tonight's consent agenda? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. The consent agenda stands approved. We will move into tonight's action items. Okay, that would be Mr. Budney.
That would be, actually, Jackie was on 2 commissions. A for actually 20 years, and Festival Commission a couple of years. And the motion is to accept with regret the resignation of Jacqueline Snow Davies from the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Festival Commission effective December 31st, 2017.
Okay, moved by Trustee Buddy, seconded by Treasurer Van Oss. Yeah, Miss Davies was...
she's been around a long time, and she just is going to be away from the island for a number of months. And rather than just miss meetings, she decided it'd be better if she resigned. And she's been a real asset to the zoning board. She's been on it as long as I've known her. We'll miss her.
She also, hopefully she'll be back for Island Fest. She orchestrated and ran for the last couple of years, the car shows. She was a lot of fun at that, actually. Any other questions, comments on Mrs. Snow Davies' departure? With that, those in favor, of accepting with regret the resignation of Ms. Jacqueline Snow Davies from the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Festival Commission effective December 31st. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered. Jackie, thanks. Hope to see more of you, though. Move on to action item number 2.
And
Continuing.
Proposed resolution to accept the Wayne County intergovernment agreement for the West River Road project.
Okay, moved by Trustee Buddy, seconded by Treasurer Van Oss. This is a good one.
This is a good one. This resolution is needed by Wayne County as part of our intergovernmental agreement. Our West River Road water main project hopefully next year, will cause us to tear up one lane of West River from Parkway to Church. And that's all we could afford to do. We went to Wayne County and asked them to give us the money to do the other lane. And that's what this agreement is for. So we will get all of West River Road paved from Parkway to Church as part of this project.
I'm just sitting here grinning because we're getting that fixed.
And this is part of the new Wayne County, if you will, where they will talk to you and in this case, partnered with us. Granted, it's their road to begin with, but we've gone through this too many times. They don't have the money that's going to come to Groseal and do things. This is something we asked specifically for, and they have agreed to it.
How far along does that take us on the loop for the water mains?
That will
complete it. Excellent.
And that's why the water main is so important to us. But getting the road done is certainly a plus.
Is under the road.
It will be under the road on the northbound lane or the eastern lane of West River. They're agreeing to do the southbound lane. Yeah,
I don't know how you.
This is good stuff.
Okay.
When we get through with questions, I read the resolution.
I
have one comment. What do you look about like you're going to pass out from this information? Are you okay? They're going to pass out dead. Looks like you're just can't believe it. That's all. West Road fixed. Eventually.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, we'll take what we can get.
Yeah.
From Parkway to Church. That's not part of the project.
Okay. Other comments from the board on. All right. With none offered, Mr. Buddy, would you read the resolution, please?
I will read the resolution.
Board. I had treasurer. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Whereas Groseal Township believes quality roads are a vital part of any community, and whereas certain improvements are necessary to West River Road to increase traffic safety and to encourage economic development, and whereas the County of Wayne has committed to the improvement of the road in an area generally described as West River Road from Groseal Parkway to Church Road, and Groseal Township will assist financially in the improvement of the road, and whereas the County of Wayne will provide payment to Groseal Township in the amount of $857,120 as total participation by County of Wayne on the total project costs, and now, therefore, be it resolved that the Groseal Township Board of Trustees does hereby approve the proposed agreement between Groseal Township and County of Wayne for the improvement of West River Road from Groseal Parkway to Church Road, and be it further resolved that the supervisor and clerk are authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of Groseal Township.
Okay, with that, moved by Trustee Buddy, seconded by Treasurer Van Oss. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered? Motion carries. Nicely done. Property donation. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This is a motion to accept the donation of lots 188 and 189 in Groseal Woods subdivision. I would move to, based upon the recommendation of the Greenways Open Space Committee, to accept the property donation of lots 188 and 189, Groseal Woods subdivision for the purpose of open space, and authorize the township manager and township attorney to process the property transaction.
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Bletcher and seconded by Trustee Budney. Pick up the background, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. The board packet includes various emails, communication from Cliff St. Pierre, the chair of the Open Space Greenways, Dale Ream, township manager, and myself. History of this is pretty straightforward. The subject property is adjacent to 15 open space lots currently owned by the township in the woods north of Horse Mill Road. The cost to process the donation, including transaction fees and legal time, is estimated to be about $1,200. The funds would come from the open space account. Subject properties are estimated to have values of $11,200. The annual taxes paid currently total $346.89. These properties will be a valuable addition to a group of existing township properties. Regarding any concerns about environmental, we have looked at the environmental on the adjoining township properties, the lots up there, and they are clean. So we anticipate the same will be here. And the property is part of what's commonly known as the Animal or Wildlife Sanctuary between Horse Mill and Bridge Road. I ask that the township process this so that we might complete the project by the end of the year so that the donor would have the tax benefits to such a donation in tax year 2017.
So we always wonder about taking these properties off the tax rolls, but the $346 probably isn't going to affect our budget a great deal. Mr. Sorty.
In addition to that, Mr. Supervisor and board members, I was working with the township manager on this to make sure that we're moving it because of the time frame on it. We did pull an informational title search on the property. We're able to pull that information, and we've got it. That was one of our major concerns, to make sure that we don't get in, accept property and get into a mess with a dispute about who owns what. But that's all clean, and that's one of the big issues that's already been resolved.
Thank you, Mr. Sorty. Comments from the board, Mr. Buddy?
Just a question for you. You said we looked at our lots and they were clean. Are we going to look at these lots before we take this on, or
no? The property.
Are you just assuming that it's
the adjacent properties are clean? There is no environmental.
You're not worried about it?
No, because they are absolutely adjoining. They're not 100 feet or 100 yards away from what we have. They are adjoining. If there was a concern about some environmental contamination, you would normally expect that would have arisen with the lots that are adjoining and the lots that are already in township possession.
This is a completely vacant area, so it isn't like somebody's been living and could have done something to those lots.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Carl.
Are there any road access currently to these properties?
The roads are platted, but they are undeveloped. The main road through there is thoroughfare. The road to the north is Morkland Avenue. The road to the south is Sherburne Avenue. Those run east and west, and as you'll recall, there is no east-west roads that begin west of thoroughfare and attach or connect with Meridian. So while they're platted, there is nothing there that currently would show that there's an ability to use those except with as a walking trail or as with an ORV.
Who do these properties then belong to?
The township packet we've identified, the donor is a Joseph.
No, but I mean, what I'm getting at is, are they going to be part of open space, or are they going to belong to the township?
The intention is that they would belong to the township. They would be managed most likely by the open space, Tom, but I think that they're going to be owned by the township. That's what we're looking for.
It'll cost us $1,200 to do the paperwork. We'll lose $350 a year. Property in the middle of nowhere with zero access to it, that regardless whether we take them or not, they'll probably stay like that for the next 100 years.
That is certainly a one view, perhaps a negative view of that. I think a more positive view is that this brings into the township fold properties that are adjoining to what we already own, what we have already been managing, and it protects it from development. And the cost on that is minimal. We've noted what the taxes are on an annual basis.
Appear to be undevelopable regardless. So it just doesn't make any sense.
No, they're not undevelopable regardless. You do have rights of access from one property if it is landlocked. Typically, you will see that there have been courts that have ruled for easements to allow access to those properties.
They're only 50 feet wide, 100 feet deep. They're not developable.
Put them together, they most certainly would be.
Still doesn't make sense.
I'd call for the vote.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of, based on the recommendation of Greenways Open Space, accept property donations of lots 188, 189 Grocery Wood subdivision for the purpose of, says for the purpose of open space. So, and to authorize the township manager and the attorney to process the property transaction. So, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, that with Mr. Malvesto's dissent, the motion carries.
Thank you for identifying me.
All right, last of the action items. Approve the, and this is an annual event, to move that the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees approve the 2018 Wayne County Department of Public Service permits to construct, operate, use, and or maintain various roads within Grosse Ile Township.
Support.
Okay, moved by the supervisor, seconded by Trustee Budney. Again, this is an annual permitting process we do with Wayne County, and the permits in question are, I'll read the numbers. A-18035, maintenance on right-of-way of county roads. Permit A18082, special events. Permit A18091, street sweeping. And permit A18094, pavement restoration. Question among the board?
No questions. Just to make it clear to everybody, this is an annual thing that we get. It allows us to do something on either their right-of-way or their road. That's all it is. We couldn't seal a crack on their road if we didn't have these permits. So that's all it is, and it is something that we do annually.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the board? So with that, those in favor of approving the 2018 Wayne County Department of Public Service permits to construct, operate, use, or maintain various roads within Grosse Ile Township, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, none offered. Those carried. And that concludes tonight's action items. Clerk is not present tonight. Mrs. Gray, no comment. Mr. Treasurer.
Briefly, November financial report information is currently being compiled. Excuse me, and will be available for the next board meeting. The investment report is on the website, the current one, on my website. The 2017 winter property bills have been mailed. Please note that these bills are now in a different format. They will arrive in an envelope and versus a self-mailing. If you did not receive your tax bill, please contact the Treasurer's Office to confirm that we have the proper mailing address. 2017 winter tax bills are due February 14th, 2018. Eligible residents can apply for an extension for the winter tax due February 14th to April 30th, 2018. Deferment applications are available at the Treasurer's Office or online. Contact Danette, and she'll walk you through it. 2018 pet tags are still available at a cost of $6. After January, they're going to go up to $12. I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Treasurer. I did one comment on the quality of the paper that the...
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay.
Yeah, just
to make sure you knew about it.
I thought the format and everything was pretty nice, but unfortunately, the bottom line stayed the same. or didn't change for the better.
I'm not
Mr. Nelson.
curious about a number, but this one is much more easy to manage, to open, to not have it fall apart in your hands and everything else. That old structure was 1910 vintage, maybe. Put your finger under here and pop this up, and
So overall, we're pretty happy with it.
very happy.
Good.
Thank you.
Other than
job,
the numbers keep going up. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Trustee reports, Mr. Budney.
Yes, thank you, Brian. Tomorrow is our December DPS meeting. We will be talking about roads, so I encourage anybody that has any comments regarding a road project or how we would fund fixing our roads, please come to the meeting tomorrow and give us your viewpoint on those. That's what we are looking for. That's what we will be looking for with our meetings when we discuss roads, is your input, so that ultimately when we do the road project, we be doing what the people want. No ZBA meeting this month. And the only other thing is I'd like to wish my fellow board members, the employees of Groseal Township, and all the residents of Groseal Township a very Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Budney. Mr. Malvesto.
Yes. First off, there's neither a fire commission or a BPAC commission meeting this month, just that time of year. As a note for the fire department, to date, there's been over 125 fire calls. We're pushing over 500 EMS calls, so we are on we're on track for probably 650 calls, fire combination fire EMS calls for this year. Just to show you how busy these guys are. Actually, they made 3 calls last night. So if you can imagine your sleep being disturbed 3 times in a given night, disturbed is probably interrupted might be a better term, but these guys are totally committed to this township, the residents on this township, and when those calls do come in, they're up and they're running. Mr. Loftus, I read your article in this past week's paper. I want to thank you for clarifying to the public that there are no discussions taking place in a way of further millages. Things are looking good. I'd like to reassure the public out there that both Mr. Riem, Mr. Loftus, and this board are going to commit themselves to the upcoming budget to see to it that reduce any deficit for the coming year, to eliminate that $250,000 deficit that we're facing. There's commitment on everyone's part to do what they have to make this happen. Also, over this past weekend, attending a number of parties, there's been a lot of comments in regards to, Mr. Bletcher brought it up, about the broadcasting of our board meeting and commission meetings. And I understand that there's a Mr. Riem has dedicated him and his staff to coming up with some sort of a plan by the beginning of the new year to resolve this issue. It's unfair to you as the residents, and the commitment is there to get this resolved, at least have an action plan going forward, so that in the coming year you'll be able to watch all of our meetings without the disruptions that we've currently been experiencing. Other than that, Merry Christmas to all of you. Thank you, and hope to see you next year.
Thanks, Tom. Mr. Bletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Regarding the Open Space Greenways Committee, we met, and Manager Ream has opened negotiations for access from Ferry Road to the Ferry Trails, so that we would hopefully have a through trail that would replace the one that was closed earlier this year with the purchase and construction of 2 homes on the trail. We're also setting goals for 2018, including trail maintenance, further connecting trails, as well as a review of the Dump the Junk program, perhaps reducing it from 2 times a year to 1 time a year. Woody Clark has been instrumental in handling that program for a number of years, and it has simply become very, very expensive. We're spending approximately $8,000 for the 2 events. We're looking at opening up a plan and having discussions with the refuse collector to see if we couldn't reduce this to once a year and perhaps continue with special pickups maybe once a year or twice a year through the existing services, as opposed to having dumped the junk twice a year with all of the expense from those rather large containers, the 30-yard dumpsters that we have. So we're looking to cut costs there. And Mr. Clark has done a great job over the years. This is certainly no reflection on anything you've done, Woody, other than the fact that 2 days, twice a year is an awful long program for anybody. It's also expensive. We're looking for a better way to spend our resources. With respect to the police department, we drove 15,110 miles last month, answered 27 alarms, had 28 rescues, and 67 911 calls, for a total of 979 calls that were responded to by your police department. 129 verbal warnings were issued, and there were 19 warrant arrests that were made. Regarding personnel, we do have Sergeant Relic retiring next week after 27 years with the department, and Officer Dan McLaughlin has been promoted to sergeant with a one-year probationary period. He will be stepping up into that vacancy. Police Commission meets tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Everyone's welcome. Come on down and join us and get a chance to know your police department better. And again, to everybody here, all the township employees and all the members of the public, best wishes for a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and please drive safely.
Thanks, Carl. Mr. Nelson.
Well said, Carl. I have a couple announcements. First of all, the ice rink is been flooded, and it's freezing as we speak, and it may be open in a couple days, which is pretty encouraging news after what we've been through. At the Groesville Township website, it'll indicate the hours and when it will be open. The rec offices will be closed from December 25th through January the 2nd. There is not a CRC or a Festival Commission meeting this month. And then Mr. Chad, always does, wanted me to read this message. We wish everyone a happy, healthy, and safe holiday season. The festival's elves are hard at work for June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Merry Christmas.
That's going to be tough to follow. Anyway, we're looking forward to Island Fest already. Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mr. Assorti, an attorney's report. Manager isn't here, so I guess I'll just try to wrap things up, at least this part of it. The Historical Society Christmas Boutique is still open through December 23rd. Fridays 4 to 8, Saturdays and Sundays 11 to 6. For those of you who are still shopping or are maybe just starting your shopping, you've got a few more weekends there. And my friends on Macomb Street and the DDA, they have some really unique shops also, so you really don't have to go too far. The reason I'm telling you don't have to go too far because the Wayne County Bridge will be closed to traffic December 14th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. for the continued inspection. If that changes, I'll let you know. Township Hall closed for holidays Monday and Tuesday, December 25th and 26th, and also Monday, Tuesday, January 1st, and January 2nd for the new year. The last day for yard waste pickup is 15th of December. Has that changed, Lorinda? Is that still? The 15th of December. Okay, that's this Friday, so that's the last day for pickup. I don't want to see bags sitting out all winter like has happened times previously. Let's see. Kim's been busy. January 13th, and this is something Margie thought she'd cut out. January 13th from 1 to 3, the Groesville Soccer Fields. First annual Sled Hill Olympics. Hope we don't have that much snow, but we probably will. Snow games, sled bowling, sled racing, snowman building, obstacle courses. Contestants are to provide their own sleds, and please remember to dress warmly and spirited as you represent your team, weather permitting. It's $4 per entry, and there'll be hot cocoa. See, Senior Holiday Luncheon, Wednesday, December 13th at 12:30 at Centennial Farm. $10 in advance, please. Continuing. Remember in my article I was talking, winter's here, let's embrace it. Our rec department is putting together all sorts of winter stuff, and I'm just thrilled that we can stay here and stay busy. Okay, Groesville First Annual Winter Classic, December 18th through 22nd, Water's Edge Ice Rink. Grab your skates and gear up. 3x3 and 5x5 hockey, slap shot competition, fastest skater. Bring your own skates and equipment, obviously. I have one more item, but I'm wrap it up. Merry Christmas. We'll open it up at this time to public comment, and then we'll go into discussion after that. With that, public comment. Mr. Zalasko. I do have the legal fees.
Before I comment, Woody, can you hear me? Okay. Before I comment, are we going to do discussion now and then allow comment on that, or is this the only opportunity we get to comment on those things that were brought up? Obviously, because one of them is one that I've talked about 2 months ago, and I would like to have comment. But I would be willing to wait for the discussion first and then make the comment. I think that would be only fair.
I think we can bring them back up for a second. Yeah, we can open it to a second discussion period.
Thank you.
Or a second public comment period, especially if it's close to your heart. Other public comment at this point? Mr. Clark.
Woody Clark, Park Lane. Last meeting I brought up were the $42,500 when we're going to get it back. You said wait. I'm waiting.
Guess what? Well, might as well keep waiting, but we're going to get some use out of the ice rink. Other questions?
So you're going to get money paid back from the ice rink?
There are some there are some opportunities in the offing, and I'm just going to leave that to the manager and the rec director.
Okay. All right. Wi-Fi hotspots could fry your cells. Make sure it's at home. Place the Wi-Fi router as far away from the living space as possible. Try sticking it in a spare room or in the garage if the signal is strong enough. You're out and about, turn off the Wi-Fi mode and the devices unless you absolutely need to connect. If you're doing something to involve big download or data like watching or a movie YouTube, plug your device into a wired connection rather than using Wi-Fi, since the heavy-duty spikes was the amount of radiation emitted. Now, this isn't gross eel, but they said at the end of the study, it turned out that the average teacher was exposed to 66 milliwatts radiation from Wi-Fi. That's 10 times the amount of radiation considered by safe. And Franklin Graham warns parents to block the Disney Channel Beware. Now, also on your $200,000 you took away from your $200,000 you took. We were $200,000 in the hole, and you took it from some place and paid that off. Is that correct?
You've lost me. We didn't take $200,000 from anything. We were projecting a potential deficit in the budget this year. All right. What did I say about question and answer?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I'll answer it ask you the question, and I'll be back 2 weeks and answer the same question. There's probably $200,000 in order to balance the budget. That's the question. Why did we do to get that problem? Did somebody screw up? Somebody cost us this, or what?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Headley Amendment was passed improperly, and that really affects our ability to recoup revenues.
That's the only reason.
That's not the only reason, but that is a major reason. Okay. We live on property taxes, Woody.
Okay.
We live on property taxes. What he's getting at is, for us we can make that up, but we have to cut services. That's what we do. We offer services, and we have to pay for it. So what services would you like to see cut? We can balance it.
Okay.
So,
where are we getting the $200,000?
Savings. We have.
Wait a minute.
We have savings. We have.
How much do we have in the savings if we have to go next year?
$2.4 million.
We have 2.4 in that kitty.
Yes.
So we're going to take 200 out of this kitty and pay the deal. Now we can last 20 years.
Well, our revenues are rising, and we're getting to different pay and OPEB scales to try to cut it off on the expense end. So we didn't get into this overnight. We're not getting out of it overnight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mrs. Walker.
Walker, Thorpe Court. Now, I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but you're telling me that Headley is the only reason.
Headley is a major reason.
Well, then wouldn't that be the same for every other community?
Yep.
In the downriver? And there are other communities that are not losing $250,000 on an annual basis. And in 3 years, it's over $700,000. So I just can't say that. I can't accept that. And that's all I'm going to say. It makes no sense.
You work the budget every year. It makes sense. But Mr. Lemoyne.
Good evening. Steve Lemoyne, 8410 Hampton. Thank you for your Christmas wishes. Best to each and every one of you. First, Mr. Budney, I apologize. I cannot be there tomorrow night, but I always am in favor of road repair on Church Road. So
somehow I don't think I'll forget that.
I will keep bringing that up. Second, I'll express a frustration. So I do like to utilize email. That way I keep it straight what I've emailed different folks of the township. I'm getting a little frustrated that it seems to be picking and choosing when emails are responded to. So I got a number of them out there, and unfortunately the manager's not here, but a number of them out there with the manager yet to be responded to. So there's definitely a bias, in my opinion, from my perception of reading my emails of when they're responded to or not. So I don't know who I escalate that to next. I don't need an answer right now, but would like someone to reach out to me tomorrow on my email or my cell phone of who I escalate to when no one is responding for taxpayer dollars, when I'm paying people to respond to me and no one is responding. Thank you.
Make that happen. Thank you, Mr. Lemoyne. Other comments from the public present? Okay, with none offered, let's step into our discussion item. And Mr. Bletcher?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Regarding the first item, the financial planner, the Township Board is going to be entering into negotiations with the clerical, the TPOAM, for a contract. We have had deficits of $200,000 plus for the last 3 years. These deficits are occurring during comparatively good economic times. Township taxes have been increasing last year at a rate of about 1.59%, but we still have a deficit. We have interviewed or discussed with a representative from Plant Moran several months ago the options that the Township Board may have. I have not heard back from him. I don't know, Ann, if you've heard anything or what he can recommend to us. But I am concerned and believe it is self-evident that with $200,000 plus deficits in good times, that we need to have someone come in here and take a good, long, hard look at our pay scales, our benefits, in what areas we are offering services in that perhaps are underpriced or unnecessary. Perhaps we can find ways of consolidating some services. As I discussed earlier, the Dump the Junk program, perhaps maybe rolling that into an annual or semi-annual collection on special dates during the spring and during the fall. I'm concerned that we continue during good times to be hitting a $200,000, $250,000 wall, and that is troubling to me during these good times. I'd like to have a fresh pair of eyes come in here and take a look at that. We have a number of planners out there that we could certainly interview and consider. PricewaterhouseCoopers or Ernst & Whitney, Doran Mayhew, as well as Darcy and Deering. And I think those are all people that we could look at, ask to come in here with a fresh set of eyes and see what we're doing. I say that in light of the fact that we have recently had interest from officers off the island to come and work at Grosse Ile because our benefits are much higher and better than what they're doing. They're willing to give up seniority in order to come over here and have a better benefit package and perhaps higher wages. I don't think it's fair to task Ann or Dale with the idea of going out and finding what comparables are. I'm afraid we're going to get politics involved in this, and I don't think that's fair because that's not something that they do on a regular basis. And comparables are much more difficult than calling up Rockwood or Gibraltar or Trenton and saying, what do you pay your clerk ones, or what do you pay your payroll twos, or what do you pay your cable people, just to name a few examples. And if we can realize any savings on that now, that's going to be significant, because these problems aren't going away. They appear to be getting worse. And at some point, we're going to have to look at either laying off people and reducing services, or having a debt structure that's not supporting. When Plant Moran was here and gave us a quick overview, he had indicated, looking at our pension plan as an example, we needed to look at that and address it, because the long-term trend is not good. I would like to have this board entertain and interview financial planners, consultants that can come in, take a look at what we have and say, you can do something different here, you can save some savings there, there's monies to be saved, or you may have to raise rates. I don't think that we on this board necessarily all possess the talents and the skills to do that. I'd like a fresh pair of eyes to come out and do that, and I'd like to do that with a study session in January.
We can incorporate that into January study session, certainly. I know we're not going to find an easy answer. When you talk about pay and benefits, we have, 47 employees, and of that, 10 or 11 are not covered under labor contracts. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle in terms of pay. We talked about, the police are the most expensive budget. And I think we get a good return on the dollar, on the investment in that. So, as came up once before, our policy is to have at least 2 on the road, because they are the first responders for medical and other law enforcement issues. We could cut that down to 1, but there's a lot of risk there.
That's one of a number of options, and I certainly would be hard-pressed to support that, as we've discussed on a number of occasions. And I think, Brian, you've made a point during the state meetings there that our first responders, the police, are there to begin and initiate the medical response and care. So we essentially have firefighters and police officers that are responding and working well hand to hand. The contract also requires, if we were to look at a layoff, and I'm not suggesting that a layoff is necessary, but you lay off the dispatchers first, and then you start going into seniority for various officers and things like that. So we would have to do an awful lot. We have studied that situation. We did that a number of years ago. The last time we had a budget crunch, I believe it was in 2009, Chief Porcarelli was tasked with finding out how we can save money, and at what point do we lay people off to save money, and the numbers were not pretty then. And the savings were somewhat illusory because of the nature of police work. You have to staff the desk. You have to have someone do dispatch. And if you're removing a dispatcher from the equation, you're bringing in a higher priced police officer, taking them off the road and putting them behind the desk. I just think that it's very important that we initiate this discussion so that we're proactive before we get into the contract negotiations with the TPOAM, and let's see what changes we can make and what we can do. If it costs us $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, I think, Tom, you'd indicated that those were not out of the ballpark. The savings that we start right now are going to be important, because at some point we have to make even tougher decisions going down the road, and I don't want to have to looking at laying people off. I really don't want to cut services unless the taxpayers are willing to pay for it, and that means higher revenues through taxes and user fees. But we're going to have to make a decision, and I don't think kicking it down the road is going to be a good option. I'd like to have another pair of eyes on this. That's my discussion.
Keeping in mind, right now, the state legislature is working on some statutory changes to pay and benefits, municipality-wide or municipal employee-wide, government employee-wide. They started out with police and firefighters because I guess they're the easiest target, and didn't get too far. So we may be a little bit constrained, but we're talking about end of January for the study session, so we will see where that trend is going. What bonds do we have that are going to be paid off? The bond for this building is nearing completion, is it not? Okay, that's still 8 years down the road.
Study on our MERS, he is working on that.
Okay. All right, we do have the pay survey from the Conference of Western Wayne. It's pretty inclusive. It's last year's data, but Ann and I we've looked through that, and we were accused of being overpaid and underworked, and we ran the numbers, and it turns out I thought we were doing pretty well. Pay comparison was significantly less than other communities were paying there, and we just started at the senior level. The supervisor, deputy supervisor, which we don't have, township manager, an assistant manager, which we don't have, human relations director, which we don't have. So I think we're getting pretty good value from that perspective. But we certainly do need to look at cutting those costs. And some of the past years we have had budget surpluses. It's been just kind of all over the page, and Ann's predictions are just predictions. She says she's conservative. I continue to say she's pessimistic. We usually end up somewhat better, but only a couple times have we ended up in the black as opposed to in the red. But we'll peel back that onion. Any other comments on the financial discussion?
Yes, I do. Over 3 months ago, we spoke about the very issue that Carl Bletcher just brought up. And we thought that there was going to be some names brought back to us. It has not happened. The pension plan that Plant Moran spoke to us about approximately 3 months ago was a plan that was 17 years old. Just rehashed an old report. Nothing was really accomplished by that. I find it irresponsible for this board or any member of this board, every time the discussion of a deficit comes up, to immediately go to the police department. You got a department that consistently, annually, comes in under their budget. Only at times when they were forced to make some expenditures based on overtime to cover police officers that were on a medical did they even go over the budget at all. And in fact, when all numbers were put together, they were right on target. They have continually gone out of their way to meet their target and do everything they can to keep costs where they're at. The people, the residents of this township have voted for operating costs for our police department. And again, it's just irresponsible to continually go after them because they are the easy target. I'm sorry, it's unfair to them. When they do everything they possibly can, they have to operate within certain guidelines that are dictated to them that they have no control over. So I'm sad to see that we continually go down that road. Going forward, Carl, you're right. We need a second set of eyes. We need people who are practiced in this and who can give us suggestions, good, bad, otherwise. We need a second pair of eyes to look at this, where there aren't politics involved, or I'll let it go at that. But budget-wise, we need to get a stronger grip on what's going on, and when we have taken every avenue possible to reduce those costs, then we can look at what we need to do to generate additional income. But until then, we need to get that second pair of eyes in here.
Okay, your recollection of the study session we had with Plant Moran is a little different than mine. We did reintroduce the 17-year-old report, but the outcome was it had only changed slightly, and he updated us on what had changed, and that's where we are with MERS. We pointed out there are some options we could go. But
we have not pursued those options, and that's what's...
Well, at the time, none of them looked like anywhere we wanted to go. Mr. Darzniak?
I'm sorry.
All right, Ms. Darzniak has the floor.
I'm sorry. This is a working board meeting. I apologize. That time. So we've accomplished nothing.
I
If you
said
don't pound
Mrs.
that-
Marsniak had the floor.
I was talking.
And I said Mrs. Darzniak had the floor.
Would you
said
like to be
before
removed from this meeting?
All right, let's put a stop to this right now. No, I'm not even going to address that. Mrs. Darzniak, you have the floor. Please.
We did have Plant Moran come in for a study session. And on to other issues. We were talking about attorneys and everything else, and it got put to the side. So I recently, because January was, again, when we were going to have a study session regarding financials and contracts and all that, I said, please run these numbers for us. So the board got diverted, so it wasn't important because you had planned study sessions for attorneys, accountants, to discuss all those things. Those were all being discussed, and it kind of pushed to the side. So I knew budget was coming up. I just talked to him. He says he's getting it, and he will have it ready. So I don't want to say that I didn't put it to the side. You guys moved on to other things. So I'm bringing it back for January when budget discussions and contract discussions were going to begin. So
Okay,
that's
for everyone's edification here, we're going to have the first business meeting in January on the 8th. The second business meeting, which would be on the 22nd, we're going to have a study session. This is what the study session is about. All right. Now, Mr. Malvesto, follow up?
No, the disappointment is that it's been over 3 months and nothing has been followed up on. It'll be next year before we begin to follow up on any of this.
Okay, other comments on the financial review? Discussion item number 2, Mr. Bletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This deals with the problem that we have with communications regarding the bridge and now the latest issues with the bridges that connect the interior island to the outer islands, if you will, as well as crossing the canals. I had the pleasure today to speak with Bill Kostick and asked him for some ideas and some thoughts. I ran the idea of having an informational committee only formed so that we could have contacts that are presently available to us, but we haven't been able to get a hold of or to make those kinds of connections. Bill has indicated that he is a neighbor of our county commissioner, Joe Palmara, and would talk to him. He thought that having an informational committee only, nothing to make any decisions, but to essentially review the information that is forthcoming and has been forthcoming and has been promised. Mr. Palmara gave Mr. Kostick his cell phone number and said the township board should feel free to speak with him. And he asked that we sit down, a couple of board members, try and have coffee with him before the end of the year. And he could get an idea what our problems are, what we're looking to do, take it to the next level, if you will. And he would try and set up a meeting, he being our township or our county commissioner, would try and set up a meeting, hopefully with Larry Young, who is the Deputy Director of Public Services of Wayne County, that he would also like to have Bev Watts attend there, and either Warren Evans or a representative from his office, so that we can then begin to receive regular monthly updates. Mr. Kostick has indicated that he would like to do that starting in January. Sit down, informational only. We're not there to criticize them or to tell them what to do, but I think it is very important that we have our commissioner be able to reach out and help us on this project, and he has volunteered to do that. It is astounding to me that anybody would give me his cell phone so that we could reach out and talk to him directly. I also had the privilege of sitting in on a Downriver Community Conference meeting and spoke with a Michael Klotz, who is the Deputy District Director for our Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, and he has offered to come to this township board to see if there's any federal funds available or anything that they could do to help us with the bridge. So what I would be looking for, again, going into January, would be to open up another avenue of discussions with and communications with Wayne County, take it to a level where if the gentleman's giving us his cell phone number, I think he's serious about that. And when I have the same kind of contact from Representative Dingell's office, I think they're serious, and they may have some avenues that we could at least communicate and perhaps have some money that would help us and help Wayne County with the bridge. I'm reminded of the fact that when Wayne County rebuilt the approach on West River Road to Groseal Parkway. Chief Porcerelli and now Commissioner Bob Zalasko looked at that and suggested that the length of the approach was inappropriate because traffic would back up onto the bridge, and the resonating of the vibrations from the vehicles on the bridge waiting for the light to change would significantly shorten the lifespan of that bridge. And Wayne County was persuaded with a second set of eyes that maybe we can do something and should do something differently. I'm hoping initially we can at least open up lines of communication here, and I'd like to sit down, have coffee with our county commissioner and see what he can do for us in January. And as an aside, we all received the letter that you sent, Brian, to the county asking and setting some deadlines. And I want to comment that that was well done, and I fully support the ideas that you had in there. And I would hope that we can use a number of different approaches to get information. But I thought you did a very good job, and I'm going to go on record saying that, and thank you.
And the current status is, and you alluded to, we got notification from the Waymaster that there will be some limits imposed on 4 of the internal bridges within the community. That was a surprise to us, and I contacted my contacts in Wayne County, Beverly Watts and Bernard Parker, who are now both in Wayne County DPS, and they weren't aware of it either. So Mr. Parker called me just before I came to the meeting tonight, the second time we talked today, and he is going to have some more information and some data for me. He said by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, so I'll be looking for it, and you'll know what I know at 3:15 if it comes in as scheduled. But we've got the dialogue open. They are getting their communication chain a little better controlled. Anyway, some of it was private conversation, but I think the communication is opening up. More people we bring on this, the better. The more avenues of funding we can find, the better. And we'll move forward on this. And I'll let you know what I know tomorrow afternoon.
I just say, I certainly agree that we need to be getting information, and I think starting with a sit down with the various people, including Mr. Palmera, would be a good start to that, and to see where we go after that, whether we need another committee or not. We may find if we're given the people that are going to give us the information on a routine basis, we don't have to go any farther than that.
Well, like I said, we'll know a little bit more tomorrow. And I'm just kind of curious. We got Miss Beneteau was notified on the waiting increase, and there were several other communities on that list within Wayne County that were notified that they had bridge constraints too, and wonder how they were notified. I'm just, one of them is Trenton, so I'm going to give Jim Wagner a call. Jim, did you know?
Yeah, that your bridge.
Yeah, by the way. So any other comments on the?
Yes, I'd like to expand on Carl Bletcher's statement there. Carl, I agree with you. It would be helpful to have a commission made up of people that have the necessary skills and background to help follow up with this. But at a little more local level, I think there should be a group put together made up of different segments of this township that the impact of the bridge will affect greatly. And I'm talking about our contractors, local contractors especially, our school system, who, if any reduction of service on the access to Groseal and the loss of right to school school of choice students, to lose a great number of them because of a limited access would have a large impact on the school. Our merchants, both retail, business, it certainly has an impact on them. Our services, such as waste, that sort of thing. There are a number of people that, if something was to happen, we're not quite sure we can only guess how it impacts them, but it would be good to hear from them personally and then have a source of information to each and every one of them. Because if and when something happens, it's certainly going to have a great impact, and those people need to be part of this. Not that they should be involved in the engineering or the repairing of the bridge. They have no business doing that, but they need to have a line of communications with this township and know that their issues are being addressed and perhaps not solved, but they've got a way of getting getting their concerns out to us, and it'll better help us to understand what we can do for them. So, Carl, I would just expand on what you said.
Thank you, Tom.
Any other comments on this topic? Let's move to topic number 3, Mr. Bletcher.
Like Mr. Malvesto indicated earlier, it seems like when we go to Kroger, Save-On, or anywhere else on the island, the continuing question is, what are you going to do about when can you do something, and what are you going to do about the microphones? I've noticed in watching reruns of their meetings that when somebody turns their head from the microphone even a couple of inches or in a direction, or invariably when somebody comes to the podium, that it's lost, the sound is gone, and I'm understanding now that Dale is addressing that, and I do thank you, Tom, for that information, and Dale for stepping up to do that. I think it's important. If people are going to tune in, they should understand what we talk about, what we decide, and how we get there. So that's all I have to say, and I appreciate the fact that Dale is working on that, and I look forward to a day when I can shop without having that issue come up.
All right, any other... I know this has been a continuing issue that, from our analysis, the information is good leaving the control booth here. Where it gets scrambled beyond that, we don't know. Work on it. But yeah, that we pay enough for this service. We need to have it fixed. And these are fairly new microphones too, so nice if that were simple.
Yeah, actually, like our last ZBA meeting, and since we've been talking about this for some time, I've been watching my fellow commissioners, where are they when they're talking? And our last ZBA meeting, everybody was right up at the mic, and I turned my volume up to 100, and I can't hear a thing from the ZBA meeting. So something has to be done, basically. And I've gotten, just like Carl, a number of people saying, "What's the deal? Can't hear a thing." So we have to do something, and it's good that Dale is on that.
Okay. Other comments on recordings? Mr. Zalasko, you wanted to make a comment.
All right, first of all, I'm not up here to make war or argue with anybody, okay? We're all on the same team. I am enlightened that this discussion took place tonight. Carl, thank you. As you know, months ago I asked about the number one issue, which is the financial plan. And as we get into the discussion, if you watch yourselves, we're all sitting here trying to figure out what our options are. There's no better way to know what your options are than to bring this third party, other set of eyes in here and find out what they are. Look at the individual departments. Sit down with the individual department heads. Tell them what their options are. Find out where our cost factors are. Where can we make improvements? We're just second guessing ourselves. There's nothing more important right now, especially with the budget season coming up, than that financial plan. We need that. It's very, very important, so that the board can make their decisions. Now, the issues that were talked about tonight, understand, they are not a reflection upon Brian and his communications with the bridge. They're not a reflection upon Annie in her financials, the way she handles the job. They are an option to look at other talents to bring in here to find out where we can find some advantage to doing it even better. Instead of stand still, what can we do to be better tomorrow? And that's what it's all about. We've made a commitment to the budget, to the reducing deficit. What better way to reduce that than to have a financial plan, take a fresh look at what we have? Thank you. The bridge, same thing, same approach. We're looking at finding a talent, maybe a little closer with technical engineering background, as Tom said, to help us in that communication on the bridge. Excellent idea. Management 101. Go out, find the talent, and delegate. You're going to get results. I thank you for allowing me to come back up here. I am enlightened to hear that this board is talking about those issues. Very important. This is probably the most pleasing meeting I've been to all year. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to wish you and all of your families a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Zlasko. Other comments? Now that we've Mr. Lemoyne.
Steve Lemoyne, 8410 Hampton. First, don't forget Church Road. Second, I do appreciate being able to watch this from home. We got a pretty busy house at where we live, and it is disappointing. You know, even at 100 tonight, it was 7:40, and my wife said, "Are you just going to go up there?" And I said, "Yep, I'm just going to drive up there." So, and you know, the kids will sometimes want to just have a good laugh. They'll look at the ZBA, and they can't even hear anything. So it is a little embarrassing. That's your last point. Your second point, you know, if I ever get the chance to drive a fire truck, maybe sometime. I've only been here 10 years. Just curious, you know, I don't need an answer today, but hopefully none of these road restrictions affect the great vehicles that the team has on the inner side of the island. That would be disappointing. Third, you know, I've been doing different things for business for a long time. My bias is I don't think this group needs to bring in someone external. I think you folks know the tough discussions. You know them already. I discussed some of them here at this podium a few months ago, whenever it was we first talked about the roads at one of the meetings, you know, and got dragged across the carpet when I'm asking why on that same night on the agenda they're going to approve yet again. And I know there's a lot of reasons to approve, priority, snowplow, and all those things, but these are those tough discussions we have to have. Do we offer this level insurance plan or a lower level? Do we have this priority service for $30,000, $40,000 or not? These are the things that keep coming back up, and 10, 12, 13 other ideas that we all know the answer to. Dump the junk, we know the answer to it. We could save another 15, 20 grand, get rid of the whole thing. You know, we know the answers that a third party we're going to pay 20, 30 grand for is going to come back with. But there's no aha moment, in my opinion, that they're going to come back with. I think open meetings, open discussions, those who want to have input and listen will show up, and that's what this group should do. And put it out there on a slide ahead of time so people can come prepared to look and see. But if every group comes together that you represent and the different commissions, there's enough money there. There truly is.
Thank you, Mr. Lemoyne. Further comments? Mrs. Walker.
Again, I didn't want to come back up, but I respectfully disagree. You guys have been losing money every year. You have discussions. You haven't found the results you need. You haven't found the answers. If you have found the answers, you haven't found the votes. I definitely think Carl is right. Tom is right. Get a third party in. You might not like what they say, and I'm sure you won't. But that's what you do when you're a business struggling, and this township is struggling. And in 3 years, when a lot of this board is gone, there'll be a legacy that you will not be pleased to have if you do not change your ways now. So I definitely encouraged Carl and the board to look into these professional groups, not somebody you've had around that has an interest in saying, oh, we did a great job 17 years ago. There's nothing changed. There's a lot that's changed, a lot in the community. So I heartily hope that you do move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Other comments? Last chance. Okay, none offered.
So moved.
Second? Okay, call the meeting adjourned at, let's make it 8:41. Thanks for coming tonight. And again, last meeting for December. Have a nice Christmas. Be careful. Hope to see all of you in January, so don't anybody get hurt.